Hey everyone, it's Erin again, here to talk to you about Men, Women, and the Mystery of Love, Chapter 2. This week we are going to be talking about, this chapter's title is called Beyond the Sexual Urge, and it outlines a lot of useful things that for men and women to know about how to respect and be responsible for someone of the opposite sex's heart and mind and body and soul. So it kind of goes over a lot of information, and it's a little bit heavier material, obviously, than last week, because we're starting to kind of dive into the material pretty much right away. Like I said last week, that's going to be the only time we talk about a friendships, and now we're kind of getting it more into the love part of any relationship. Obviously, this goes for friendships and relationships, but as we progress throughout the book, it's going to be mostly about love in the way of like men and women relating to each other. So, a little recap of last week. Last week we talked about utilitarianism, and we basically said that this means you're using someone to maximize your own pleasure and to minimize your own pain and discomfort. People believe that this is a form of love. They're fooled into it because the two people engaging in the sexual act, since they are providing pleasure for each other, they don't see anything that's wrong with it, and therefore this is a loving act. I'm providing pleasure and happiness for this person. Therefore, it's not selfish. And it's actually love. Unfortunately, our society thinks that this is the truth, but it's not. And we can get really confused, actually, between, like, what true love is and isn't, especially when talking about sex. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the scenario that I just outlined, Pope John Paul II says that this is like prostitution. And when most people think of prostitution, they think of it as a bad thing, but people don't see that sexual act outside of marriage as something bad, ever. And they just think that, oh, I'm providing pleasure for this person, and they're doing the same for me, therefore this is love. And when really it's not. You're basically just giving yourself away to someone who you may not even end up with for the rest of your life. And that's actually really serious, and a lot of people just take it for granted. But it's a really serious matter, and you don't want to be giving yourself away to several people. You want to save yourself for that one person that you're going to be with the rest of your life. So this is in a way like prostitution, because you're just using that other person for your own pleasure, and maybe you're not actually getting money for it, which is a good thing, but you're not really getting anything out of it. Like, you are temporarily, just like prostitutes get money, but like they're left empty. You're left empty inside because you just gave part of yourself to someone that you may not even see again, or you may not end up marrying or being with forever. And that's a really scary thought, and a lot of people don't think about it in that sense, but really, if you do think about it, it is kind of like prostitution when you are engaging in sex in a utilitarian manner, which is really any time that you're doing it outside of marriage. So why are there so many relationships like this? Well, people don't see it like prostitution, like I said, and they claim that they are showing love for each other, by providing each other pleasure. So they just don't know the truth of it, basically. They don't really see it as anything bad. And it can have a lot to do with the way they were raised, the way the media affects us nowadays, and the people they hang out with, peer pressure. It can be any number of things. But people just aren't educated on it, and it's kind of sad because then they live their whole lives thinking that love is something completely different than what it really is. Utilitarian relationships like these create fear and insecurity in the people in the relationship because they just want that, like if they're using each other for validation or to feel secure or whatever, that's just that's literally a sense of use. And it's sad because some people really do want that security and they think that they have to have sex with that person to make them stay with them forever. But we all know that relationships end even after people have had sex. Even if the girl's pregnant, relationships end. Like I said last week, people always want a way out. They never want a commitment. So even if you're having sex with someone, that doesn't mean that they're going to stay with you. I mean, that may even force them to leave you sooner. Like, you never know. And so it can create fear and insecurity, because if you're constantly doing that, you're like, well, I'm really scared that he's going to leave me, so I need to have sex with him. Or I'm really don't know what I would do alone, like without a boyfriend or in life, and I need someone by my side like all the time, and this is the one way that I think I can do that, so I'm giving myself to him. Or vice versa, a guy doing it for a girl, same thing. So if you're thinking this though, or if someone in a relationship is thinking that, there really isn't a really strong foundation for that relationship, because if you're just using that person and having them by your side because they're a human being that you can latch onto and be friends with, or you think that they're going to be committed to you now for the rest of your life because of this, then you're just kind of digging yourself into a deeper hole, and it's not really love. So Pope John Paul II explains, quote, "If I treat someone else as a means and a tool in relation to myself, I cannot help regarding myself in the same light. We have here something like the opposite of the commandment to love." So the way that you treat others is a reflection of the way you view yourself. So if you are disrespecting others, maybe it's a reflection of you not being able to respect yourself in the same light. So if you're having sex with someone, or it's not like saying that you look down upon yourself so much, but like I think it goes a lot into the fact that a lot of people in our society are uneducated about it. So they think that sex doesn't really matter, and they're like, well, I love myself, but I love him too. So there can be a very different views on this, but if you get down to it, like, why are people really giving themselves away in the sexual act outside of marriage? I mean, that is really a big, I don't know what the word is. It's, it definitely shows how that's a reflection of you, in a sense. I mean, you're not, even if you think you respect yourself, but you're engaging in sexual intercourse with someone, you're not respecting yourself, because respecting yourself means that you are protecting your mind, body, soul, and heart, and saving it for that one person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. That is respecting yourself. Not respecting yourself is letting yourself be used or be persuaded or influenced in ways that that are bad for you, and letting yourself do that and choosing to follow those paths, whether it's sexually or not. So respect of yourself can go a long way if you really truly do view yourself as God's creation and someone worth treating right. So what is the sexual urge? The sexual urge orients a man toward the physical and psychological characteristics of a woman, and vice versa. Woman to a man. It is a bodily and emotional attraction to a person of the other sex. So the sexual urge is directed towards a particular person who exhibits certain traits, not the traits themselves. That's actually very important in defining the sexual urge, because a lot of people say, oh, well, if you have the sexual urge, that's bad. The sexual urge is a really good thing, actually. If we didn't have the sexual urge, men and women wouldn't be attracted to each other. Like, that is the foundation for all relationships between men and women, is the sexual urge. If we aren't attracted to someone, we're obviously not going to try to get to know them or become their friend or anything. Like, if there's no initial inclination to get to know someone, then there's nothing there. So the sexual urge is actually a really good thing, but it's directed towards people, not traits. A lot of people say, oh, well, if you have a sexual urge, you're just looking for like big-chested women or just certain traits about people's bodies. But really the sexual urge is towards certain people who exhibit certain traits. So, like I said, the sexual urge is not bad. It actually can provide the framework for an authentic love to develop because, like I said, no sexual urge, no attraction to the opposite sex. So, therefore, you don't enter into a relationship and you don't fall in love, and it's just like the sexual urge is honestly like the beginning of everything. Like, if we didn't have that inner sexual urge in us, like, there wouldn't be any attraction to the opposite sex. So it can provide the raw material from which acts of love may arise, and if it is guided by a great sense of responsibility for the other person. So it, like I just said, it has to be guided by this responsibility that you have for the other person. If you don't feel responsible for them in any way, shape, or form, then you're not really you're not really attracted to them, you're not really trying to get to know them, it's not really anything. But the sexual urge provides like the foundation for that responsibility of the other person to develop. Another thing we often hear is when people just happen to have sex with this person, they're like, oh, well, I can control myself. There's a very different way that humans act versus animals. When you say you can't control yourself, you're basically saying that you're an animal, because animals act on instinct. Humans have control over themselves and can choose whether they act on something or not. But animals don't have that. If a dog sees a piece of meat in front of him, he's going to immediately eat it. He's not going to say or think in his mind, oh, well, my other dog friends are really hungry and they're probably more hungry than I am, so I'm just going to step back and let them eat it later. No, he's going to eat it. We are not animals. We don't see something and automatically just like attack or like throw ourselves at that thing. Like, we consciously make a decision to act upon something or not act upon something. So, we have the free will to choose what we do and don't do, is basically what this is. So we can control the sexual urge. A lot of people say that they can't, but they can. It's really hard, but you can do it. A person is in control of the sexual urge, not the other way around. John Paul II said that if the interaction between a man and a woman remains at the level of these initial reactions produced by the sexual urge, the relationship is not able to grow into a true communion of persons. This can be exemplified through the way people view each other. If a man looks at a woman and he sees her as a beautiful work of art, that is a lot different than looking at her and just saying, I want her, I want that body. Like, there is a very big difference between those two. If the sexual urge remains at the level of just like, I want, then that's what he's saying. Basically, the relationship can't grow into a true communion of persons because it's just going to be sexual. It's not going to be a loving bond between two people who are growing closer to Christ together. No, it's not going to be that. But if a guy sees a girl and he sees her as God's creation and wants to get to actually know her as a person and not just her body, then that provides the foundation for a true communion of persons to form. So we have a very different way of viewing here, but it's something that we have to think about nonetheless, because there are certain people who will go with the I want versus the beautiful work of art. So it's very different, but it's basically another choice that you make when you see people, and something that's very difficult, obviously, nowadays with the sexualized commercials and media and billboards and internet and everything. But it's very important to like work on viewing humans as human beings and not just objects or a collection of body parts to be used. So John Paul II says that our delicate interactions with persons of the opposite sex demand great responsibility. We are responsible, like as women, we are responsible for protecting the hearts of men. And as men, they're responsible for protecting the hearts of women. In the way we act, the way we dress, the way we live out our lives, basically. When every choice we make kind of affects this. So it's something that we have to really think about, because we're like responsible for other human beings, and most people don't think about that. So it's definitely a good reflection a good thing that John Paul II says that we can reflect on. But yeah, definitely something to think about. In our Bible study this week, we read Matthew chapter 5, verses 27 through 28. Basically, this is saying that if you look at someone lustfully, you've already committed adultery with them in your heart. That is a frightening concept, especially nowadays when there is just constant sexualized things all around us, for men and women. It is really hard to battle this, but it's something that we definitely have to work on, because like I was saying before, it's the beautiful work of art versus I want thing. It's a really scary concept, actually. Like adultery, when we think of adultery, we think, oh, well, that husband cheated on his wife with this girl. But like, it's a lot more than just that. John Paul II teaches that this so that we will look at a person as God's creation and not a collection of body parts. And like I said, it's a struggle in our society because of media. So that is all I have for you today. I'm going to put up some reflection questions after this for you to just think about, and as you go about your life, and they obviously have to do with what we talked about today. And one last thing, actually, in Bible study this week, one girl asked, how would you respond to someone who gets upset at people who are Catholic for judging people who have had sex outside of marriage? What would you say to that person? Basically, we don't judge. We are never supposed to judge other human beings on their acts. That's God's job. So what we would tell that person is we don't judge them. We, in fact, just try to help them and talk to them about their relationships and their choices in those relationships, and let them know that they are worth so much more and that there's so much more ahead of them that they have to look forward to. And that saving themselves for marriage is actually a really beautiful thing, because obviously, like, God's gift to married couples is to be able to have sex and to have it with that one person the rest of your life. And just because someone has engaged in premarital sex but realizes later on in their lives or whatnot that they have sinned and that was a really bad choice or whatever, there is hope. Just because you've engaged in premarital sex does not mean that it's the end of your life. You can still have a beautiful and wonderful marriage one day with one person and a committed marriage for the rest of your life, and even if you have had sex with someone else. And it's something that we just try to teach and encourage others to educate themselves about as well, because the more people you give yourself away to, the less of a bond you're able to have with that one person in marriage eventually. if you get to that point. So we don't judge. We, in fact, try to help these people, pray for these people, and tell them that there is hope, that just because that they've given themselves away to one or more people, they can still marry someone and be happily married for the rest of their lives and engage in sex with that one person, and not all hope is lost. So that was actually something that was really beneficial for my whole Bible study, and we actually had a good discussion about it. So now I'm done. So I just encourage you all to continue watching my videos in the weeks to come, and next week we will talk about chapter 3. Thanks for watching. Bye.